This is going to be a review of one book written by a recent, or rather not so recent, Russian immigrant to Israel that recently appeared in a Moscow Jewish publishing house. I want to give just a little bit of context to understand what it is all about. There was once a real literature, a good piece of writing, written simultaneously in the 70s, or rather from the 70s on, and is still being written, by people who came first from Soviet Russia, then from what was left of Soviet Russia, and they're coming even now. There is nothing special in this phenomenon, an émigré or whatever, literature written in a country but in a different language than the surrounding one. In fact, we are learning now that there have been many such literatures or sub-literatures in Israel, which were, however, totally unknown to anybody, received no press, no appreciation, nothing. Indeed, there is a English-Israeli literature, French, Czech, a huge Hungarian-Israeli literature, lots of them in any language, mostly Eastern European languages. And this Russian-Israeli literature was likewise totally ignored by the literary establishment, but the people who came here still went on writing like mad, and they kept on writing and produced immense quantities of novels, hundreds, maybe tens of hundreds of them. Of poetry I don't speak even, and it was a real flood. And the question arose what it is all about, what it is, what is it? Is it Russian? Is it Israeli? Is it Jewish? Is it non-Jewish? Sometimes it was very un-Jewish. And of course, it couldn't be defined as Russian literature because it was not about the subjects that Russian literature was used to. The piquant thing was that the writers did not want to be considered Russian writers. Those writers thought themselves Israeli. We are an Israeli writers. We are writing an Israeli literature only in the Russian language. But they probably expected some welcome from the local literary establishment, which of course they didn't get. I would no longer be in a hurry to assess who is central and who's peripheral in Russian literature, because the writer may stay in Israel, like Dina Rubina, the famous Russian writer, and be considered a prominent Russian writer. Or she or he may sit in Moscow, like Lenor Goralik does, and be an Israeli writer. Or my favorite example is Alexander Ilichevsky, who works in Hadassah and writes Russian novels that receive Booker Prizes, and recently who published a wonderful metaphysical novel about Jerusalem. Okay, but Ilichevsky is too well known. I want to speak about another Israeli writer who is less known. Has anyone seen a publication, a book, an essay, whatever, about Russian life in Israel, so that everything was not terrible, not nightmarish, not hostile, but on the contrary, happy? And this writer I want to present here, I think manages to do exactly that. Yes, here it is, this publication. Please, I am speaking of the writer Anna Isakova and the little book that she recently published, which is called Gitl and the Andromeda stone. You know, Andromeda stone is that rock in Jaffa, in the sea near the shore of Jaffa. It is published in Moscow, this I said, by the publishers Knizhniki, which is very good. The author, Anna Isakova, has come from Vilnius. In Israel, she has been since 1972 and worked all the time as a doctor in Sheba, in the famous hospital of Sheba, now Tel HaShomer. She was a pioneer of Russian-Israeli press when this appeared and headed a well-known, legendary now, first Russian big newspaper, Vesti. Later, Isakova was an advisor on Russian things, on Russian matters, to Prime Minister, to the Israeli Prime Minister. This novel that I'm going to speak about is about her acquaintance, not her heroine's acquaintance with Israel. The most appealing thing about Anna's book is its openness. The heroine doesn't think even of working along professional lines. She has a too rare profession for that. And she's ready to do anything. She's learning Hebrew. She's opening herself to the new world. But this new world is very complicated. She sees this life as a confrontation of multiple forces. Yes, and it's really tantalizing to see how they fight. But the most interesting thing about this book is the people. There are market beggars with $1 million, each one with $1 million biography fit for Hollywood, about the Shoah and so on, for a film about the Shoah. And disillusioned kibbutzniks, and pious plumbers, and even brave Israeli colonels turned suspicious businessmen. And all with their own language. The heroine's own origin from Vilna makes it easier for her to decipher this life, because she knows by birth 5 languages, because Vilna speaks in 5 languages, used to speak in 5 languages: Lithuanian, Polish, German, Yiddish, and Russian. And so Hebrew just comes to 6. But Isakova's book is not really about the picturesque Jaffa. It's really about history, about how history directly concerns us. And the first example is how a Jewish girl from the formerly hermetically closed Russia feels for the first time the wind of history on her shoulders. Here she is wandering in Tel Aviv and sees a pharmacy on the corner with a date opened in 1937. And she thinks, this place must be German. And of course it is. And she thinks, in Israel, the history of the world, that's a quotation. In history of the world, you just see it. There was a pogrom in Kishinev, and a kibbutz appeared on the ancient land. Poland was divided, and a village was formed here. A certain Shikl Gruber came to power, and here a pharmacy appeared on Schenken Street, and so on from the beginning of time. The flood, an ark, the pyramids, manna, they destroy our temple. We hang harps on the windows. And finally, a few words about the plot. The heroine is a saleswoman at an antique shop, and she wants to go separate, independent. She wants to discover an unknown artist and launch him. And there is nothing, but suddenly there appears a file of drawings out of nowhere, and it seems that they have no other owner than the heroine. And this new totally unknown name belongs to some a really very elusive figure. The drawings are wonderful. It's a cross between a kind of Chagall with some mystical, dazzling symbolist like Odilon Redon. So it appears from her descriptions. Nothing anyone ever has seen. And so she decides to find this man, and it turns, well, this becomes the axis, the somewhat detective axis of the novel, and she finally finds the man, and this proves the key to all the strange things in the book, and the answer to how she is connected to all this quite improbable story. And it's very interesting, and it creates a real suspense, and I think this is worth reading. What is a novel? A novel is an instance of different cultural, linguistic, social strata communicating, talking to each other, understanding, misunderstanding. Well, a battle of languages, a battle of cultural codes, and for a reader, which is society, this is like a mirror shown to that same society, a mirror to see itself, to assess itself, to enjoy itself. And I think that all those characters who speak, as Isakova shows, in Russian, because the novel is Russian, but really they think, and really, in reality, they're supposed to speak each in his own language, in Ladino. Yeah? And it is shown, you can feel it's Ladino, in Yiddish, in a kind of a Hasidic dialect, and so on and so forth. And it's all is presented in the richest Russian possible. I think this is a novel which fulfills its primary function. It shows the society its own richness. And this is exactly what literature is supposed to do. And I think that Anna Isakova has managed in her Gitl and the Andromeda stone, has managed with this task very, very well.